Greetings and assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining the Halal in Travel Global Summit by Crescent Rating. We appreciate that you're taking the time to join, and we're excited to be having this session with very interesting panelists. Allow me to first, before introducing the panelists and introducing the session, allow me to briefly introduce myself. My name is Reem El Shafaqi, and I'm partner at Dinar Standard, a growth strategy and execution management firm focusing on empowering organizations for profitable growth and global impact. I lead the travel and tourism sector, as well as marketing strategy and marketing campaigns. And so that's the focus of what I do at Dinar Standard. Now, in terms of our session today, the topic is marketing and engaging Muslim travelers in the new normal. And the specific objectives are to discuss and to allow the audience to gain a better understanding and hear from our panelists in terms of their views of what destinations and businesses should prioritize when it comes to marketing to Muslim travelers in the new normal, and the strategies that would work and perhaps those that would not work as well as compared to pre-COVID. So that's in a nutshell our objectives. And I'll go ahead and introduce each of our panelists. So we have on the panel Ufuk Seychin. Ufuk is Chief Marketing Officer at Halal Booking. Ufuk has traveled the world visiting halal-friendly properties and is an expert on marketing to this sector. He was born and raised in Germany, but has lived in the UK, Turkey, and other countries, and has established many business contacts in various parts of the world. He's also chair of the International Affairs Committee and member of the executive team at the Muslim Council of Britain. Next, I'd like to introduce Veysel Gokbel. He's data scientist and co-founder of halaltravels.com. Halaltravels.com is an online travel agency startup headquartered in London. He co-founded the company when he saw a huge potential and gap in the niche travel market from a data analytics perspective. And the company aims at meeting the growing global demand in the digital niche travel market by addressing technology and innovation. Last but not least, I'd like to introduce Rauda Zaini. She's the marketing manager of Halal Trip, which is a leading global community platform for Muslim travelers and part of the Crescent Rating Group. She leads and manages projects with partners and international tourism boards in destination marketing and campaigns. Her aim is to translate her passion for travel as a millennial into innovative products and other useful and unique experiences to all Muslim travelers. Now, thank you, panelists, and I look forward to an exciting discussion. So we have a few questions, but I imagine that this will be an interactive discussion, and so feel free to have a conversation with each other and to interject and just add your views. So let me start, given the topic of how do we address the Muslim traveler given the new environment post-COVID or post the pandemic. So first of all, a question, and feel free to jump in and answer. How do you feel traveler needs have changed as a result of the pandemic? And another part of the question is, how do you gather information about those needs?
Who do you want to be first?
Okay, Veysel, go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be invited to this conversation with my esteemed colleagues from different companies. So I think there are many ways that travel has changed, and we know that, so we always telling about it. But I think when it comes to Muslim travel, I don't see a lot of big differences between Muslim behaviors versus some other population behaviors, but it's about more kind of millennial behaviors versus family behaviors, or kind of maybe we could talk about the range differences between how they reacted to the travel after pandemic overall. So of course, so we see some interesting trends, and a lot of companies, other companies as well, seeing that. So one of the things is, for example, improved customer service. So most of the customers we have are getting in touch with us, and they actually want us to communicate with them. So they want to see human behind their bookings, and they want to make sure that there are people on the background that they can reach out anytime in order to communicate or change things when it comes to travel. So I think I would say that is the biggest change. And even though halaltravels.com is an online travel agency, so we actually want our customers come to our website and do their bookings by themselves without needing any people. But that has changed. That's not true for even booking.com, expedia.com. So that's because it's kind of after the pandemic, everything get mixed with the old-fashioned approaches and new-fashioned approaches. So, but I think the companies that will really understand and change the environment and capture the customer behaviors are going to be using technologies into that conversation. How? Just one example, and we all talk about it. Chatbots, for example, So the chatbots are actually giving customers to be communicated instantly and feel kind of feel cared about their customer related, travel related needs. So when we incorporate technology into a kind of customer relationship, then I think that is becoming kind of more stronger relationship. And this is what I see in Muslim travel environment as well as in the global travel environment a lot. But I think our customers, the Muslim customers, Muslim travelers, are much more interested in getting conversation with the companies that they work more than, and this is my experience, more than any other customers in the mainstream travel industry.
So I'm curious to hear from Ufuk and Rauda as well. And Ufuk, I know Halal Booking has announced great successes for the month of May. Have you noticed a change of booking behavior or different needs
Yes,
from travelers?
yes. Thank you for having me as well at this great Halal Global Travel Summit organized by Crescent Rating. Yes, definitely. The needs of customers have changed, obviously, during COVID and post-COVID. We're seeing customers obviously requesting to have more flexibility. So in terms of their bookings, they want to not to commit to any financial, don't want to provide any financial commitments, basically. And therefore, certain hotel offerings, which were usually upfront payments, those had to be changed. Even if the hotels did not agree to this, we as Halal Booking basically offered customers either a completely free booking with no commitment, and basically payment only required just a few weeks before the check-in, or with a very low deposit, like 10%, 20% upfront payment, which in many customers' eyes is a very low risk. Basically, they just pay 10%, 20%, can confirm their booking, make their hotel arrangements, their flight arrangements, all the arrangements basically for the travel. And then when it comes to nearer to the time of travel, then they can decide if they actually want to go ahead and make the full payment or cancel the booking because of the uncertainty due to travel restrictions changing all the time. I mean, for example, here in the UK, we've had complete ban basically of travel for a long time. Then the traffic light system has been introduced, and one of the small number of countries which people were allowed to travel without a huge amount of extra hassle was, for example, Portugal. So everyone started to book their holidays for Portugal, and just only 2 weeks, 3 weeks into traveling into Portugal, they removed Portugal from the green list, put it back on the amber list, and there was this rush of people having to fly back because they wanted to avoid quarantining on their return. So this shows, again, travel restrictions change all the time, and customers require flexibility. And that's what we try to meet, so that there is opportunity for customers to make their bookings, plan their holidays, look forward to something. And if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. And there's no huge arrangements required to rebook and cancel bookings, etc. So those were one of the needs. There are other needs as well, but this is one of the most important ones. The other one is obviously around information. What are the travel restrictions? What are the COVID measures? And that's a whole different aspect we can talk about later, maybe.
Yeah. Sounds good. And Rhoda, I wanted to ask you, how are you gathering at Halal Trip? How are you gathering information about traveler needs? And if there's anything else in addition to what was mentioned that you have noticed?
Yep. Thanks, Reem. Very nice to be here today with my fellow panelists as well. I think it's really difficult to distinguish between Muslim travelers and general travelers when it comes to who are affected by the pandemic, because I think everyone is affected by the pandemic. So I mean, we have done a lot of research on the Muslim travel market. One of the reports that we released last year at the height of COVID was the Travel Readiness Report, examining COVID situation in ASEAN. So the report itself is structured to really understand the impact of COVID-19 on the travel industry, and really, in hopes of better helping destinations and travel stakeholders in better preparing for future travel in all possible scenarios. So data has always been, one of our main focus at Crescent Rating, and that really is how we understand travel behavior. And from that main report as well, I think the most obvious thing we have observed through the research as well is that, health, safety and security are top concerns on the minds of travelers these days. So it's really for brands, for I think businesses, destinations, it's really about building trust, building confidence in these areas for, when travel resumes or travel restrictions ease.
Absolutely. And what you said in terms of that, for both Muslim travelers are the same as mainstream travelers in terms of their COVID-related concerns. And I feel with the current environment, I feel communicating information, like you said, Ufuk, that's a big need in terms of information, what the restrictions are, what are the safety measures taken. I think communicating these types of communications, they even trump communicating information about Muslim-friendly facilities. I feel it comes first. COVID-related information and safety measures take a first seat.
Yes, I mean, maybe I can add to this. So we obviously we did a survey as well in early January, beginning of the new year. 2,000 customers basically participated. And what was clear is majority of people are actually not afraid of contracting the virus and getting ill. It's more about the travel restrictions which stop them from traveling. So last year we had a spike in travel during the summer period when most of the countries came out of the lockdown. And then we've got a huge number of people traveling in July, August, and then it came down again. And then obviously the variant started, a lot new lockdowns, second wave, third wave, etc. But what we did is we introduced the COVID support page on most of the properties. We've got the COVID section as well. So what are the COVID requirements, the measures of the hotels? And also we introduced the book with confidence section, so people can see, so what happens if suddenly the rules change and I have to quarantine on my return? Can I now cancel my booking free of charge? What happens if I have a positive PCR test just before the flight and I'm not allowed to come to to travel to my holiday destination? So those are the common questions that people asked, and we try to answer them on the hotel page. And it varies from hotel to hotel. Some hotels say, of course, free of charge cancellation, or other hotels say, in these circumstances, we can change the dates of the booking, etc., etc. And that information is important for people to make up their minds and take a decision.
Absolutely. And I have another related question, and perhaps we can start with you, Rauda. Has your marketing messaging changed? And if it has, in what way? And also, have your communication platforms changed?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. In terms of the content that we create for our audience, it's still very much the same because our audience is still very much, Muslims, millennials mostly. So our content in terms of how we create it, what we do is pretty much the same. What is probably just lesser is just travel related content, probably at the height of COVID, just because of sensitivities around the world. So we focused a lot more on uplifting content, focusing more on other lifestyle areas, on food, perhaps on trends, and as the situation kind of improved, and as domestic travel is gradually kind of opens up within destinations, we focus a little bit more on developing more domestic content. So we observe the trends, and we kind of cater it towards our audience who are still very much looking for travel content, because if you can't travel, the more you kind of want to be able to read about it, watch videos about it. So this sort of content, maybe it's aimed at really kind of rallying the community in solidarity against fighting the pandemic. We try to do that. We try to create a safe space for kind of everyone to come in amidst the negativity of the pandemic. And in terms of like the communication platforms, I think most interestingly, actually, the whole lockdown or circuit breaker in Singapore, as we call it, has really propelled us as an organization also to adapt and be agile. And one of the things that it made us do was to launch our first podcast series. So I think for a long time we were talking about, we should get doing a podcast and things, but we never actually did it. But what it took was a lockdown and for everyone to be confined to our homes to actually launch our first podcast, the Halal Travel podcast. So we're now in our season 3. So
That's excellent. Yeah, that's very timely because you had a captive audience and people were at home and consuming a lot of
Right.
media in general. Ufuk, I'd like to jump to you as the Chief Marketing Officer at Halal Booking. So has Halal Booking's marketing messaging changed? And if so, in what way?
Yeah, obviously, especially during the main lockdowns where people were confined to their homes and not allowed to leave their homes unless for good reason. To advertise something for with offers, with discounts, etc. is not gonna fly with customers. So it was more about inspirational. So once we are allowed to travel freely again, those could be fantastic destinations to travel to. Villa holidays were obviously more in demand, and so we communicated those type of holidays more because of the having the chance to do your own holiday without having to actually interact with other people and reduce basically the contact. And we called it zero contact villas basically. And the other thing is so during Ramadan, for example, we did this series about historical Muslim travelers who traveled the world and left fantastic series of books to the world for us to read. So we tried to inspire during Ramadan, talking about these destinations like Istanbul, Marrakesh, Cairo, etc. All these places which they have traveled, with long blog articles, interesting features and facts. So just more about inspiration for future when we are allowed to travel again. So that was the type of communication we did. Obviously, what I already explained: booking with confidence measures, COVID measures of hotels. We had, for example, taken short videos last year for some of the resorts in Antalya in Turkey, and to show and demonstrate to people how the COVID measures actually look like. So we talk about COVID measures, but what is it actually in reality? How does it look like? So from the point of arrival at the hotel reception, to the point of going to the restaurant. How is the open buffet service there? How does it work? How are the COVID test requirements, and how does it work on my departure? How do I actually get this COVID test done in time, so I've got this fit to fly certificate in my hand when I do the check-in? So this all had to be communicated, and that's what we try to do as much as possible through e-shots, through blog articles, and obviously social media.
Yeah, and I like that you used video and you actually showed people, you showed them the social distancing, you showed them the cleanliness rather than just telling. I feel it, and also in terms of the new procedures, I feel that helps a lot.
And actually the customers' feedback was fantastic. The hotel reviews, the scores, they actually increased after the pandemic last year, because there was more emphasis on safety and cleanliness, and customers appreciated it, and they actually said it didn't spoil their holiday. They actually enjoyed themselves still, and they appreciated that they had the chance to travel despite the pandemic.
That's
and we
excellent.
are now seeing a massive boom in sales. Just yesterday, we had again another record day, our best sales day in the history of Halal Booking. And we basically smashed one record after another during the last 3 weeks, because people are fed up. They want to travel,
Yeah,
and
that's
they
excellent.
see from the measures from last year. They heard about it. They saw the videos. They can read the reviews by other like-minded people on the hotel pages on our website, and they got the confidence that everything is in place to do a fantastic holiday, enjoy themselves, but still do it in a safe environment. And that's why
Yeah.
people are just booking like crazy to go away on holiday.
That makes a lot of sense, and I guess pent-up demand is a
Yes.
real thing. So I see that we're halfway through our discussion, and I still have a lot of questions. So I'm going to try to go a little bit faster. And for Vaisal, I have a different question for you.
All right,
As a
sure.
data scientist, I wanted to
Yes.
ask you, how do you incorporate data science solutions in addressing changing travel behavior?
I think that's a great question, and that's pretty much needed in our niche market travel industry, because I think, the data science related solutions are actually pretty new to travel industry overall. So we know that Booking.com, Expedia.com, the big companies are already doing a lot of data related decision making process, but other companies, with low volume, so are not really using or benefiting a lot from the data. And in fact, data science, when we say data science, we're actually interchangeably use it with AI, machine learning. So data science is actually covering all those things. But there are a lot to offer when it comes to data science. So just to attach this conversation to the previous questions and the previous points that that some of my colleagues already addressed. So, for example, the gathering information from the customers, right? So previously, before the pandemic, we were getting those information from their website visits. And maybe in another way, as Rauda and Halal Trip and Crescent Rating was collecting or conducting surveys in order to better understand the customers. But in fact, data science, when it comes to data science, so it is offering a lot of different aspects of collecting data from customers. For example, because all the travel industries, including us, were hit by the pandemic during this last year period. So what would be potentially done, for example, going out and check the different platforms, publicly available platforms like Reddit, like Twitter, for example, and get text data, or social media, for example, get text data and try to understand and see by doing text analysis. And that's one of the biggest strengths of data science, I would say, using natural language processing. text analysis of what are people talking about,
Mm-hmm.
in the media, because they're not really coming to our website. If not,
Mm-hmm.
what are they talking about, and how we can
Yeah.
understand what they're thinking, what their sentiment is, how it's changing, over the
Yeah.
period, because of the restrictions change, their feelings change as well, and their
Yes.
desire is changing. So, however, we don't see such kind of studies in our niche Muslim travel industry. I know that Dinar Standard, Crescent Rating are doing great things over there, but I think there are a lot to do when it comes to data science. Or, for example, prediction has become more important than ever. Or predicting cancellations, for example. Booking cancellations are one of the biggest problems in travel industries, and it has
Mm-hmm.
increased. Even though we give them the flexibility, they want to change it, they want to update it. But when it comes to predicting their behaviors, so we better address kind of new hotel addition to our website. It's a kind of product related decision, right? So which hotel am I going to add to my website? It's expensive even if you use APIs, but if you want to make direct contract with the hotels, it's actually expensive. It requires operational people. It's sometimes some hotels require you to kind of paying them kind of security deposits. How do you make that decision? Data science comes into play over there as well. And then predicting, for example, predicting the booking overall booking chart is another thing. So predicting whether or not this is going to be a family traveler or solo traveler, or what types of hotel they're going to book based on their historical information. I think there are, and this is something in my heart, absolutely. So I think there are a lot to do, but to do those kind of analyses, I think the first thing for companies like us is to address the data quality and data pipeline. So most of the companies in this market that I noticed has a lot of data, but they're not sure how valuable it is and how dirty it is, by the way. So they don't really make sure how dirty the data is, because it requires a lot of time for data scientists to clean the data, prepare the data for such kind of advanced analyses. And that really helps them make kind of very quality, better decision making when it comes to management, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to product related decision. I think there are a lot to do with data science related solutions. And yeah, so I'm always
Yeah.
happy to talk about it, because that's pretty exciting and a gap in this market right now. And I think there are a lot to address in that kind of things.
Absolutely, and I feel you mentioned several great points in terms of using data science for predictive analysis and for decision making. And in terms of what you mentioned in terms of social media listening, I mean that's an activity we've done previously, but it can be done in a much more in-depth way, and especially comparing pre-COVID and post-COVID, and just monitoring across a period of time sentiment, traveler sentiment, and what are their concerns, what are their needs. So definitely a great point that you mention.
And as you said, sentiments are actually the feelings of people, and it's changing because the situations are changing, restrictions are changing. So that's why I think it requires a frequent addressing and frequent data collection process and analysis. So that's why it's pretty much important to better understand the customer behaviors, not just relying on our own company data. That is very valuable, but when it comes to travel restrictions, then how do you understand your
Yeah,
customer behaviors? You
it
can
can be.
understand manually,
Yeah, and
but
it can
it's
be
not the same.
skewed. It can be
Yeah,
skewed based on your customer base. But if you look at a wider audience, or wider platform, you get
right.
more of a comprehensive view. I have a
Absolutely.
question for Rauda, being a millennial. So a question more on trends. So we're seeing trends that are, and signals of things that are happening as a result of the pandemic, and happening as some countries are easing restrictions. So we're seeing, for example, some of these trends, and feel free to agree or disagree with the trends that I mentioned. So we're seeing workations, we're seeing domestic travel. I think we all agree on that. And then we're seeing the appeal of less crowded destinations and more outdoor activities, and then multi-generational travel. So do you, first of all, do you agree with these trends? And then my main question is, do you think these trends will continue post the pandemic?
Yep. I think if anything, I think this pandemic would already have opened doors to new trends that would not have otherwise been uncovered pre-COVID. There are things like staycations are very popular in Singapore where I am. It was previously already popular, but I think because of restrictions in travel, you have nowhere else to go, so they look inwardly and it's just become even more popular. So I think I think these trends would definitely be around for a while. And even if the pandemic has really paralyzed travel, it has expedited technology innovation. It has also facilitated, I think, unexpected progress. We are seeing new trends like domestic travel. Domestic travel, I think, is a bit more probably prevalent in larger destinations, like in Singapore itself, which is so tiny. Domestic
Yeah.
travel just means that you are going to like the zoo, or you're going to
Means it's a
just
staycation, basically.
yeah, it's just a local
Yeah.
attraction sort of thing. So it's probably not as big as a domestic travel as it would be in like Turkey or like in UK. But I think it has a different kind of attraction itself that I think otherwise locals would not be going to these local attractions, would not be actually actively be supporting the local economy by going to these places. So I think what if anything, it's definitely going to be, I think, around for definitely a while.
Ufuk, do you have any comments on trends or any other trends that you're seeing, and whether or not you think they will continue?
Obviously, there's also an increased demand for domestic travel, and that's why we reacted to it already last year by expanding our portfolio. So for us, it was a new thing as well, starting to advertise destinations like the lakeside, Cornwall, the French Riviera, and other parts of Germany, or Austria, Switzerland, which were up until last year not really a big demand by our customers. And now we added all those in those locations, lots of supply, and started to advertise those destinations as well. And we saw last year many short trips, like 2-day, 3-day trips. Probably most of the times people traveled by car because it's in a not so far, so they don't have to take a plane. And also this year we're seeing the same. So customers are booking these short trips as well, in addition to longer mid or long haul trips where they fly for 3-4 hours. So that's definitely something which we observed. More demand for domestic travel by customers, and at the moment I think we've got now 300,000 properties on the website, and a lot of them is near to where our customers are, and we will expand further over the next 2 months and years to other regions as well. But if you look at where most of our customers are currently coming from, which is around Central Europe, Middle East, and Turkey, that's where we added more supply. So people have got the choice to travel locally, do staycations, do workations as well. I think you're doing yourself a workation at the moment.
I'm doing a workation. I'm doing multi-generational travel because I'm meeting
Wow.
my mother and my brother and their family. They're meeting us from Cairo, Egypt. I'm based in the US, and we're here. We're all enjoying a beautiful villa in Kalkan and on the Mediterranean in southern Turkey in the Antalya region. And we chose that specifically. We wanted more of an being in a villa, and then an outdoor location, being able to do outdoor activities and not necessarily visiting museums or busy, crowded places. So I think, we're actually doing 3 of these trends, and having done it, I would definitely continue beyond the COVID. now that we have, I think the important aspect is making sure that the technology is available. And unfortunately, what I'm seeing, it like with the villas, some property owners, they're still not up to speed in terms of the need of remote workers, in terms of it has to, they need high speed internet, for example, or maybe a small workstation with a view. So things like that. And I even noticed in the US, we took also a couple of workations, and it was the same issue. Not all property owners had fulfilled these needs. So it's something definitely for businesses to consider, and to make sure to educate, if it's villas, to educate the property owners, for hotels, of course, to make sure that they have facilities for more extended stays, for workations. And I personally think most of these trends will continue beyond COVID.
Reem, is the top request and demand that you have related to Wi-Fi, quality Wi-Fi services?
It is. It is. I mean, that came right after the view. So I'm talking to you right now. I know you don't see much of a view, but I'm looking at a gorgeous view of the Mediterranean and mountains, and a clear blue sky, and a beautiful breeze coming in. So that was number one. And then number two, very close to that, was the Wi-Fi, because to conduct business, you need, and to conduct meetings over Zoom, you need good internet connection. Otherwise, you're not able to work remotely.
Right. And I think maybe one quick comment about it. I think we have 5 minutes left.
Yes.
And I think, I think, and your experiences are very valuable. And I think this is going to increase, because the people like you really enjoy that kind of times with their parents, families, and even sometimes, with their friends. So that's a great opportunity. But I think this Wi-Fi related concerns, or so kind of things, it can be fixed very quickly by some of the countries or some of the companies. So those will be winner for this kind of post-COVID changes, like workation or so kind of things. And this is absolutely going to increase. And this is very special for Muslim travelers as well. So meeting, what you do is very special. So you come from the US, your parents come from the Egypt, and you find Turkey as kind of in the middle of something, and you enjoy the sea view right now, right? So this is very cool, and this is going to continue in the future for a lot of many people.
Exactly. And like you said, for Muslim travelers, family is very important, and we have large families, and making sure that we connect with our parents, and then they see the grandchildren. So especially for Muslim families, I feel this is very relevant. Right. So we just have a few minutes left. So we either feel free to add any general comments, and then I have another question, and anyone can answer this. In terms of, we've heard a lot about sustainable tourism, and how, with the pause in tourism due to COVID, how skies became clearer, and people became more conscious about the importance of being sustainable and sustainable tourism practices. So do you think Muslim travelers are making sustainable tourism choices? Is that on their radar? Is it more on their radar for millennials, for example, Rauda? Is it increasingly becoming a concern because of the pandemic? What are your thoughts on that? And let's just take a few quick minutes, because I know we have to close.
I mean, if I go quickly, I think from my experience, it's still in its infancy for our market. I haven't seen huge demand for sustainable tourism. What I hear more and more is about guests having strict dietary demands. So for gluten-free and other allergy-related diets which they have, and we see that hotels have reacted very fast to it, and they accommodate this type of dietary very well, and customers appreciate that, and they ask. But if you had asked that question 3-4 years ago, it would have been a very different picture. And we had lots of complaints about customers, who said, I don't find the food which I need. But now these problems have been resolved in most of the popular resorts which we sell to our customers. But sustainable tourism, to be honest, I haven't heard much demand from our customers yet.
Rhoda, have you heard at all?
Yeah.
Or are you covering that topic?
I think similar to Ufuk. I think it's still very much aware at the back of people's minds, but it's probably not much has been done yet enough for it to be kind of a conscious, sustainable tourism choice. Like for instance, like I know we do retreats. We do like retreats in groups, and you know some of the feedback that we receive. You know how in hotels they provide you with water bottles every day. They refill, you know, plastic water bottles, and you get feedback from, you know, the participants saying like, you know, we should, you know, have more sustainable options. You know, have a water bottle. We can refill our own water. So it's definitely something that they're conscious of. And I think we also see in the interviews that we do with Muslim women travelers in the report that we have done a couple of years back. It's definitely something that they want to give back to the residents. You want to give back to the destination that they're traveling to, but probably in terms of how and they can do that, it's not probably, it's still a challenge for them. So maybe what the destination and what, you know, the local tourism stakeholders can look at is, you know, making it more accessible for travelers of our market, you know, when they go to and patronize their establishment, to make these choices a bit more available to them.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, I think both of you say, is that it's still very much in its infancy, but maybe it is a little bit starting to get on the radar, and maybe more for younger travelers. And I see that we've run out of time, so I'd like to thank the panelists, Ufuk, Vaisal, and Rauda. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Crescent Rating for organizing the Halal in Travel Global Summit, and for all of the other events that you've been organizing. And most importantly, I'd like to thank the audience for joining this session, and you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. And for those listening to the recording, you may also send your questions, and they will be answered later. And I thank you very much, and I look forward to other sessions. Thank you. Assalamu
Thank you,
alaikum.
Reem.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank
You're welcome.
you.